Welcome to Momentum's virtual training series, where we invite expert facilitators to share their knowledge on topics that advance women in leadership.
Dr. Adrienne Starks is the founder and CEO of Stream Innovations. She has literally changed the world with what she has been doing. And I wanted to go ahead and just have her and I hop on a conversation. So I'm going to stop sharing and I want to have us here. Adrienne, thank you for being here. I can't wait to share with y'all how I met her. I had been, it's so funny. I had been asked to go on a trip to South Africa with Grace Klein, and it was to speak at a women's conference there. I was so excited. I had no idea who the other speakers were until I got to the airport. And they were it was very low key who all was here. It was Adrienne, and it was Dawn, and it was Sandra, and it was Brittany. And because the short time span of me being asked when I was going, it was 2 weeks, I did not have time to research who all I was speaking with. And I am so grateful because had I known who I was speaking with, I probably would have been intimidated and behaved differently around these women. And we were talking about how when you're in a van on a safari and you're seeing elephants and you're laughing and crying and singing songs from The Lion King, I don't know if I would have felt comfortable doing all of that, knowing who I was around. To talk about the depth of what Dr. Adrienne Starks has done, and from here on out, I'm going to call you Adrienne. Um, to know the depth of the impact that she's made, not just in her own life and around everyone in our generation, but generations to come, is staggering. And I am not underplaying that one bit. I wanted to talk to you more, Adrienne. I want us to expound on that. But us meeting up front showed so much about leadership right up front because no one tried to be a diva. And I left out Clarissa too because she was there and all the things that she has accomplished and done. No one acted like this is about me. And we have talked about that before here on Momentum Leaders, that as a leader, being comfortable with who you are, you make sure that you don't make anyone else feel uncomfortable about who you are. And I saw that emulated for 2 whole weeks. And it's interesting that as we all laughed about this, we had a couple from Sanford that was there, and they were amazing, Mia and Cross. When we got there, none of us had met each other. We knew of each other, but it took all of us being in a whole nother continent to get to know each other. And yet we're all here in Birmingham. And we just thought that was just so very interesting and made us come along with that and continue those conversations, which is why Dr. Adrienne Starks is here. Now, she's been very familiar with Momentum Leaders, and you can see her on our website. She has been familiar with us, and we know her, and we've been following her. But today we're going to get to know Adrienne, and I'm so grateful for this. So, Adrienne, Dr. Starks, as we have been talking about all the accomplishments you made, I wanted to ask you, you've been chosen for the If Then movement, which is huge. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about why you think that movement is so important and how you feel like that is impacting girls for the next generation.
First, thank you so much, Darla, for asking me to be a part of Momentum Leaders and giving my perspective around leadership. Um, Grateful that April also thought that it would be significant for me to speak as well. As you said, I have spoken at the Momentum Conference before in the past. And as the CEO for and founder for Stream Innovations, which stands for Science, Technology, Reading, Engineering, Arts, and Math, I have had an opportunity to use my love for science as a platform to support in the very beginning of my career, scientific discovery. And at this point, as the CEO, being able to inspire students and provide exposure for their ability to solve real world problems now and in our future. So I, as Darla was saying, had an opportunity to meet her and a number of others through Grace Klein, supporting us being able to do a missions trip in South Africa in Jeffreys Bay. And from there, oftentimes you don't present with everything that you are. And one of the things that I am proud of, and sometimes it feels very surreal, is the If Then initiative and movement. So, If Then is a phrase around if you support a woman in STEM, then she can change the world. And I wholeheartedly believe that. About 120 women from across the country were selected in 2019 to be If Then ambassadors. We had no idea what this was. And it was the energy around it was, how do we support middle school girls considering sticking with and seeing themselves in STEM? And each of these women were representing various aspects of STEM careers and also serving as role models. So, Lida Hill, who is a billionaire in Dallas, Texas, made the decision to put a few $1 million aside to fly all of us in to Dallas, have an opportunity for us to meet each other, and then did something we never would have imagined. And that was inform us that each of us would have a life-size 3D printed statue of ourselves. This is a miniature here. So they are all orange because that's a part of her brand colors. And the statues were done not just to have an image of yourself, but to have a collection of 120 women, real life women that are doing things in our country that are changing the world. And I was honored to be a part of this collective of women. I was the only woman from Alabama that has a statue. So that was also a tremendous honor. And what I loved about it is I became a fangirl of these other women. There were women that are doing things in our world that I never had any idea that I would know astrophysicists, that I would know women that were developing statistical algorithms for sports. I could go on, so I won't. But it's a beautiful representation of when you can see it, you can be it. Oftentimes with scientists, the assumption is for women that is something that someone else would do, or maybe that I won't be valued or respected for going after the thing that I love. I've had a number of conversations with women my age and older who, although they may have liked a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, or math, they were discouraged from going into those fields because of a family member or a teacher or a counselor or whomever could not imagine a woman being in that field. So they were discouraged to move forward in it. This movement is important because we still live in a world with very complex problems. And when we don't have everyone engaged in solving problems, we lose out on solutions that could make our world better.
That's so true. Yes. And I appreciate that because the more diversity you have on the team solving a problem, the more problems you're going to solve, and the better you understand where other people are coming from. You learn where your strengths are, as well as appreciating where other people's strengths are. And I want to ask you that because you're brilliant, you're an entrepreneur, you're a scientist, you're a teacher, you're a business leader. And I would love to hear from you what that has been like, and also being the only woman chosen out of Alabama, that journey has been like. So, what is it like to go from a scientist to CEO as an African American woman from the South? and maybe what the values of that's been most important to you along that journey.
So I am originally from Fairfield, Alabama. So that's like a rock's throw outside of Birmingham.
Yeah.
And as a child, I was very interested in science. So for Christmas, I asked my parents for a microscope for Christmas. And from there, it wasn't that I thought I wanted to be a scientist. I just thought science was cool. So from there, I did summer programs at UAB while I was in high school. And I had an opportunity to see that there were adults that were doing this as a career. And I thought, well, I think that's cool. Let's see. So I then attended Alabama A&M University, majoring in biology, and again did summer programs. And from there, yay, go Bulldogs. Then I left Alabama and moved to Maryland to attend the University of Maryland, Baltimore County to pursue my PhD. And at that time, there was a number of, all right, there
Yeah.
were a number of students starting out from the South that are African American, that were women, that were a part of the Meyerhoff Graduate Fellowship, which is what I was a part of. And it gave us an opportunity to build camaraderie and build friendships, as well as being able to support each other for scientific discovery. And because of that, it helped to counter the isolation and sometimes loneliness that happens as a scientist. Science is a team sport for sure, but oftentimes we do it in isolation because it's you at the bench. It is you at the computer. It is you doing the statistical analysis. It's you doing the research alone. So there has to be something that is motivating you to continue to do that, that no external person could give you. It has to be fully internal. Otherwise, you're not going to continue to do it. You will do something else. So I went to UMBC. Dr. Freeman Rabowski was president while I was there. So I am doing all the appropriate shout outs. And because he was an individual from Birmingham, Alabama, that was very impactful for me, seeing myself as a scientist, because he was a huge champion for women scientists, African American scientists, and above all, scientists from UMBC. He was the biggest cheerleader for any type of innovation and discovery and curiosity that came from UMBC, regardless of gender or racial ethnicity makeup. And that was because he believed that a collection of people can change the world. UMBC is an honors university, so there was no hesitation in talking about grades. There was no hesitation in talking about discovery and challenging yourself to do more. And being in those types of environments push you outside of your comfort zone. You see
Very
people
good.
from other countries. There were, you know, easily 50 different countries represented at UMBC. So it helped you also to see outside of maybe the small town or the singular state that you had resided in and lived in. So as a woman, a Black woman from the South who had done some traveling, but I had never met Korean, Japanese, Indian, Australian, or people from different parts of the world, and being able to work with people on problems and research from different parts of the world, it broadened my horizon around how important it is to have people share their intelligence, share their curiosity, and helping make you better.
Mhm.
So that impacted me significantly. I then went to the National Institutes of Health to do a postdoc in breast and prostate cancer disparities and understanding why African Americans have higher mortality rates
Mm,
once cancer has been identified. And that experience was also very challenging, but also understanding the impact that you can have in discovery and being able to help people that you would probably never see.
mm,
But that was the trajectory that I was on. That's what I thought that was a part of my identity. And then God changed everything. And
mm,
I came back to Alabama and started Stream Innovations as a CEO and founder of a not-for-profit in Birmingham, Alabama. And because so much of my identity was connected to a scientist, I had to rebuild what I thought my identity would look like as a business owner. And although people don't own nonprofits, you definitely do everything except for that. So I
yes, you do.
hit the ground running with building relationships, understanding how I lead, in addition to creating a culture within a company that speaks to the mission of the work that we're doing. So that takes time. There is lots of failure. There are lots of successes that are there, but also being from the South, there were things that I could hone in on around what it means to be connected to community, what it
Mm,
means to understand your impact in community. Being from the Birmingham area, seeing that people can band together and literally change the world, as an example of the civil rights movement, which Dr. Rabowski was a part of as well for the Children's
mm,
March.
mm,
Sometimes there are parts of our life that we don't know will impact who we are
mm,
and how we will lead until those pieces come together. And
mm.
I'm in the midst of the journey for life right now as a leader. And I look forward to seeing as well others that I can impact and my ability to work with other leaders to make our world better.
Do you see that along that journey that maybe some of your core values changed, not for the better or for the worse, but did they change because your perspective changed?
It definitely changed. As a scientist, the ideas that I'm working in the lab and the work that I do, and I work really hard, and I don't have to always engage with a broad audience.
Mm,
However, I needed to be able to articulate the work that I was doing so that anyone could understand it. So
mm,
granted, as a scientist, I had to hone that in order to be able to be successful, to now using some of those skills.
mhm,
As CEO, you have to be able to articulate what your mission and your vision is,
mm,
and you have to be able to tell the story. Now, granted, I had to shift dramatically.
mhm.
Um, Relationship building, and as a nonprofit CEO, relationship building is your currency.
Okay.
How you treat everyone matters,
Mm,
from the students that we impact and we call them innovators, to the champions that work with us, our volunteers, our donors, our partners. Everyone is significant because we could never do it alone. And being able to articulate that to people so that it's not just lip service, but they also understand why we do what we do and they want to be a part of helping us do it. Those types of values and creating a culture for that to happen is not something that happens overnight. And oftentimes it's not something that you can read in a book, because you also have to think about your own experiences, your own attitudes, unfortunately, sometimes your own bad habits that you have to change in order for your organization and for the mission to happen.
mm. So uh, building off of that, do you feel like, do you see how your leadership has influenced the work that you do in the community? Do you feel like that has shifted as you have grown and as you have been more comfortable with who you are and what you're doing now, going from a scientist to a nonprofit CEO. That's two different worlds.
Yes. I believe my leadership has shifted tremendously. And starting out, I really believe that title was more important. And that kind of
Mhm.
comes from an academia perspective where
Yeah.
you were working hard for titles.
Yeah.
Um, and returning home, granted, there weren't many, scientists that were running nonprofits, but that value, there was a disconnect in that value.
Mm.
Um, I started out not delegating in a way that would help our organization to be sustainable. And it wasn't because I didn't want to delegate, but I'm transitioning from a place in science where the expectation is that you can do it all.
Mm.
I then had to think about the culture of our organization. Where am I as a leader also implementing and showcasing the values that we have as a company?
Mm.
And lastly,
Mm.
I have had so many leadership lessons. They do not stop. They continue to
Leader
come
it.
all the time. And
Yeah.
and I take them as leadership lessons because they are done to situations happen either on my team or how we are engaging with a partner or how we're creating a program that stretches me outside of my comfort zone.
Mm.
And I can make the decision to be stubborn, or as well as I could be controlling in a way that I feel like the situation has to bend to my will,
Mm.
or I can shift. Shifting is not hard. Being uncomfortable, I mean, shifting is hard at times. Let me go back.
Yeah.
Shifting can be hard. Being uncomfortable is not always easy. And I think over the years, one of the major things that has changed within the last few months is listening to other leaders and being the type putting out what I wish people would give me. And
Mm. What do you mean by that?
what I mean by that is as a leader, oftentimes it's easy to say, well, no one helps me here, or I wish people would show up in this way, or man, it would be great if someone decided to come and help me envision or do a storyboard.
Mm.
Uh, so I've done that for other leaders without them asking,
Mm.
because oftentimes we are in a place where we are siloed or we feel alone, and sometimes we don't know how to ask for what we need.
Mm. That's true.
And when you're connected in community with other people, which is why community is so important, being able to offer your services without the expectation that there's going to be something in return, simply because you would like for someone to do that for you. Where every time someone gives you something or offers you something, now you have to calculate, what is the give and take? And
Mm.
that's what I mean by offering out into the world, into the universe, into my community, things that I wish people would give to me.
So with all of the leadership lessons that you've learned, are there a few critical leadership lessons that you have learned that were sometimes we learn leadership lessons by observing and saying, hey, I want to be that. I want to emulate that. We also learn lessons by watching somebody who's doing it incorrectly, going, I want to make sure I never do that. But what did you learn that was just super, I don't want to even say challenging. What was the most critical and I guess challenging? Not necessarily hard, because hard indicates that you don't want to do it. I feel like as leaders, when we want to shift and change, we'll see something, man, I want to do that. And it can be a challenge because it's something I've never done before.
Mhm.
Whether it is a trait, it is a habit, whether it's something that you see, hey, there's a deficit in our community in this area. I need to step up to the plate because I can. Was there anything specific for you that has been like, okay, This is gonna be that mountain I've got to climb.
Uh, I think starting out, probably within the first few years, I shifted my mindset from
Mm,
that of a scarcity mindset to that of an abundance mindset. And in
mm,
the nonprofit world, oftentimes people are forced, or I won't say forced, but the culture is to move in a scarcity mindset. And that means that there's only enough for one person. That
mm,
means that if someone's going to be on top, it always has to be me. And that there's not enough room for others to be successful. There's not enough room for you to help someone else because it's either all or nothing. And that's not something that someone else can show you how to do that in the work that you do. You have to take that on in all of the different ways. And an example of that is, when you're applying for grants, or when you have volunteers, or when you have donors. As a nonprofit, the feeling is all of that belongs to me and I can't share. So an example of how that has shifted is Brittany Hogan, who is the founder and executive director for Empowered to Conquer. She and I developed a friendship, and God has spoke to me and said, "Hey, give her something as a nonprofit executive director that you wish someone would do for you." And an example of that was I went to about four of my close friends that have volunteered or supported us and asked them if they would consider volunteering and supporting Empower to Conquer for a year.
wow,
That they
wow.
don't belong to me. So being able to do that gave me the opportunity to learn from her and how they work with volunteers. It opened up this whole space where I had an opportunity to learn and see how she delegates the workload to her team. And a lot of that only happened because I opened up my hands to give her something that I wish someone would give us. And it really strengthened not just our friendship, but understanding the needs of different leaders. Um, I think another example would be uh another example would be a rest example, right?
Okay.
Um, as a leader, we make the decision to do however much we have on our plate. And
Mm,
oftentimes self-care can seem like, did I get enough sleep? Or did I take the weekend? Or did I not bring my laptop home? Sometimes rest can look like, am I engaging and am I being present with my family? Um,
mm,
Rest can look like, do I have a hobby that has nothing to do with my work? That has nothing to do with that. And one of the amazing women that was a part of our group to South Africa was Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. And she has a book called Sacred Rest, which shifted my perspective as a leader. And with that, it also shifted how I expect my team to show up.
mm,
What Dr. Dalton Smith also talked about was rest should not happen after the work is done. Rest should happen before the work is done. And that blew my mind because I'm like, how do you do that? How do I rest before I do the work? And one argument that she has is that if you are pulling from an empty cup, how can you be successful and how can you meet the goals of the work that's ahead of you if you have no rest?
mm.
So that is a new perspective that I'm walking into,
Yeah.
to walk into challenges and to make sure that I am rested and not just sleep, but rested in a way
Mm,
that um, my body feels whole and my family and
mm.
those different perspectives feel whole.
I've seen you do that, and I've also seen you step back a little bit and say, "Hey, I want to rethink how I'm doing a lot of my processes. And I think that's brilliant too, but you can't do that if you don't have that rest time to where you can think things through and you can get a long-term vision of what that's going to look like.
Mhm.
So, and thinking of long-term visions, you had a vision for Stream and what that would look like. So, where are you at with that, and where do you see Stream going?
So everyone, I love these questions because we're going somewhere with these questions. And
Yes,
so
we
uh,
have a method.
with Stream, the idea from Stream came from a couple of different problems. One of the problems was when I was at the National Institutes of Health, I was what I deemed a triple minority: African American, woman, and American scientists. There were few American scientists in the section that I was in. It was majority Asian or Indian, like the country. Um, and I was the only African American scientist, regardless
Mm,
of gender. And science is a team sport. It's a team sport because you have an opportunity to share with people in your lab, I got this right, or I'm struggling. Has anyone else ever done this? Where you can show me how I can do this technique or how I can think through this problem. And not in any offense to how the world works, we often find camaraderie with things that are similar. So whether it is camaraderie among men, whether it's camaraderie among women, whether it's camaraderie among people that English is their second language and not their first language. Um, so for me, being a triple minority, there was not as much camaraderie around my presence or what my value was and what I brought to the table. So I felt like there had what happened to all the other people that I have met along the way that's not currently doing science, and what were the places that either dropped them off or they made the decision not to do this anymore. Two, which is really selfish, is that I feel like we're in the year 2000. At that time, it was maybe 2013, and
mhm.
we don't have flying cars. I watched the jet did, and I
Yes.
knew by the
But by the year
2000s
2000, we were going to have flying cars like the
we would
Jetsons.
have flying
Yes.
cars. We would have the discovery and the challenges, where I'm going above what my parents and my grandparents saw. I get some of the cool stuff that they had.
Uh-huh.
Over the years, I realized that if you don't have not just your brightest minds, but a diversity of thought around how
Mm,
you solve those problems or how you innovate new things, then we will continue to have the things that we always have. And you don't
mm,
have
yeah.
people around the
You can't
table push
progress. Yeah.
the envelope to say, well, what if we did this? I know we've never done it before, and I know no one has ever seen it before, but let's try this idea. And if everyone around the table has the same ideas, or they come from the same background, or they've had the same experiences in the same city, same town, same country, same state, then where are the new ideas going to come from?
Exactly.
So with Stream Innovations, that's our long way around of saying that Stream Innovations was created in a space for us to bring exposure to community. And we are purposeful in supporting communities that are underrepresented and underserved. And so that means that we would have programming at local libraries, we'd have programming at rec centers and YMCAs, we'd have programming at foster homes and housing authorities, in addition to schools and places that you find children. And because oftentimes it's not that they don't have an interest, it's potentially that an adult hasn't created an
Mm,
opportunity program for them,
no,
or
yeah.
transportation is a huge barrier. So
Mm,
having something that students can walk to or having something where it's in their community it makes it much easier for them to experience. So we've been doing that for about, almost 10 years. So Stream Innovations was founded in 2015. So now we're doing a new thing. And the new thing, it challenges me as a leader because it is not something that I can do alone. And I
Mm.
promise you, as a leader, I want to have the control to put my hands on all the different aspects to make it happen. Um, and it's something that God gave me, and I doubted it. And I also just did not want to pursue it because I didn't know how to make it real. And I'll tell you what it is. I'll stop holding
I
anticipation.
could, and we talked about that. This could be a whole another 1 hour conversation of all that happened
Good.
and how you have, how
I,
this even came about and how you got to see an actual visual of it.
I agree. So Stream Labs is the new project that we're working on. And that is an opportunity to use
Mm.
cargo shipping containers and being able to place them directly in community for us to have year-round programming for students in community.
Mm.
So the reason that that is significant is because we've partnered with other institutions and spaces, but we kind of have to work around their schedules, and respectfully so. We're not the only person that is looking to support organizations. I mean, in order to support children. But what we're looking to do is to have more of a permanent presence within community where students can have access to us year round. There are 7 different disciplines that we want to address. And that is starting an early pipeline for students to identify um, at the very, earliest, do I like this? To I can see myself doing this and solving problems, to this is a career that I would like to pursue. So we want to start with middle school students potentially with this. Our idea is that each container is just one discipline. So everyone in your community, as far as students that's interested in this field, they will have a place to be together and to learn and to challenge each other, as well as to envision themselves doing those things and solving problems in those fields. So the 7 different industries that we want to impact are health, automotive, construction, forensics, agriculture, tech, and innovation. The one for
Mm.
innovation is my favorite because where do students go if they have an idea for an invention?
Mm.
I'll wait, tell me. I don't know. So with all of these connect to industries and infrastructure and workforce across Alabama and really across many states and many countries that are critical to the infrastructure of our everyday life. Health, agriculture, construction, forensics, tech, automotive, and I love innovation, which is part of the name of the org.
Yeah,
So this would be done in Jefferson County, but also 7 different counties across the state. 7 different counties.
that's exciting.
And it's exciting on the outside as you guys are hearing it, like, yay,
It's
that's so
scary. It's scary on your side.
for me on my side. I was like, how in the world do I do this? And the reality as a leader is that I don't do it alone. And I trust the leadership. I found this on the web for how do I do this in reality. Siri was giving me
Siri,
the
Siri
answer
wanted to be a
how
part
to
of this.
do something I
So
don't want to do.
okay. I was
That's
going to say,
hilarious.
would you say them again? What are the 7 areas?
So I love that Lindsay put it in the chat as well.
Lindsay's on top
I'm
of
trying
things.
to get
She's good.
appreciate health is the first one. That's the first one that we're doing. Health, tech, automotive, construction, forensics, and agriculture. And of
And
course,
innovation. And someone just asked, are you looking at the black belt
so
area?
the
Yes.
idea is the different
I've got
counties.
to see the map. It's an amazing map of all the 7 counties. It's exciting.
Darla has been to our office. The 7 different counties that we want to impact in Alabama, because the idea is also for us to do this outside of Alabama as well. But the 7 counties in Alabama are, of course, Jefferson County, Madison County, Bulldogs, of course. Um, Houston County, we've had partnership with Dothan. And Greene County, Perry County, Lowndes County, Bullock County. Why the Black Belt? Is significant to address the not just underserved, not just inequities, but the lack of access within our Black Belt. And for us to be able to show students what they can do in their community, but also what's across the state that they just didn't realize that they could have access to within the workforce. So lifting some of our poorest performing schools lifts all boats. When we see
Yes.
that Bullock County, Lowndes County, Perry County, Greene County, at the very least, are able to be excellent in what they do, some of our highest performing counties and schools won't have to pull all the weight for excellence in our state. But they can't pull themselves up if they're not given the opportunity. And what we want to be able to do is bring opportunities within their county that's walking
Mm.
distance, and being able to hire people to do this within their county to support the infrastructure there so that they can be successful as well. Alabama
Mm.
is not a collection of high performing and low performing counties. We're a collection of individuals that live in this state that want good for our communities and that can work together. And that's an
Mm.
opportunity for us to work together. If you've never been to the Black Belt, or you've never been to north or southern parts of Alabama, it gives you an opportunity to impact those that maybe you won't meet, but they need your support. So
Mm.
it's a big lift. I've been doing stream innovations here locally and a couple of other places across the state, but not where we had more of a permanent presence there.
Mhm.
Where this is also significant as a leader is understanding that just because I think it's a great idea doesn't mean that the community might think it's a great idea. So we
Mm.
have to do the work of building relationships in those communities. So not just so that they have buy-in, but also that they can work alongside us and work with us in doing it. There was a question in the chat around if we're seeking
Yeah.
volunteers. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was about to say, when you were talking about, yes, Adrienne is saying yes to
Completely.
that.
Um, there are people that will need to work with us. There are people that I will
Mm.
need to hire. There are volunteers. There are donors. There are companies that believe in this type of mission and this type of work that would like to come along with us. And I desperately need them because I can't do it alone. And also, I'm never supposed to do this alone. This is such a big idea and such a big tent that there are many, many individuals and companies that would be able to do this work, because my prayer, my hope is that it is long lasting, sustainable work that we can all be
Mm.
proud of by seeing changes in test scores, by seeing unemployment decline, by seeing our workforce
Mm.
being stronger in our state, and also by seeing innovation happening that's coming from Alabama, where people
Yes.
counted Alabama out.
And I love that because we need more of that. We need for people to see that Alabama has some brilliant people, such as yourself. Thank you so much. So what are some ways that as a woman, for all the women who are watching, I know there's some men, thank you too for being here, but as
Hallelujah.
women, and how can we step into stronger leadership roles where we are? You and I talked about that a little bit before we even came on, of what does that leadership look like as a woman, and how we view ourselves, how we view the approval of other women around us, and how does that affect our leadership? So I know that was a lot right there, but I wanted you to continue the conversation you and I had started before we got on the before we started recording, because I've seen you emulate so much of what a true leader is. I've seen you in leadership roles where you were speaking and leading, where we were all coming together, we were solving problems, we were strategizing. And I've also seen you doubled over laughing at some of the funny things that we were talking about, the things that we did. We had such a wonderful time. Women are multifaceted. And I feel like sometimes we undersell ourselves. I know I've been guilty of that before. How do you step into your leadership role?
I personally, I know that it is kind of a lifelong journey. Um,
Mm,
there are people where you see their leadership and you see characteristics and qualities that you like, and we take from that. And I don't think there's a problem with doing that at all, men or women. I've had some amazing men pour into my leadership,
mhm,
and wanting me to be a strong leader. Um, I think as well, you have to determine some of your values. We were speaking earlier about me supporting another leader, and there was a conversation around power, respect, influence, and your why and your mission of why you're
mhm,
doing as a leader. And
yeah.
oftentimes those are completely out of alignment, and there's not a right or wrong in that. Um, we have seen leaders where power is the most important thing. And it doesn't matter what the mission is, it doesn't matter what the influence is, but they will retain power at all cost. There are
Mhm,
some people where respect and someone liking you impacts your leadership. So you are not always held accountable to leading because you want people to like you. You don't want to make the hard calls. So the
mhm,
people that are following you, they don't trust and they don't respect your leadership because you don't stand to support them when it gets hard for conflict. Conflict
mhm,
always brings out different parts of your leadership because you have to stand or you're asked to stand when no one else will. Um, with your influence, um, influence is very interesting because um, to me it's very much connected to your mission. If you're
mhm,
doing a thing and you can't get anyone to agree or to be excited about doing the thing, maybe you're not telling the story in the best way. Um,
mhm,
influence can shift people in a negative direction or in a positive direction. And
mhm,
leaders do that. um, but the last part is definitely the mission and your why.
mhm,
The strength of your leadership should always be connected to your why and to your mission. Is a part of your goals that you have set out? Are there metrics? Do you have your KPIs? Do all of those things are important because they help you to visualize it. But if you can't articulate your why, why are you leading this company? Why are you leading
mhm,
this division? Why are you leading in your home? What are the values there that are your North Star that regardless to what's going to happen, you're going to come back to that?
mhm.
Regardless to how much power you have, how much people
Yeah.
like you, and the influence that you may be working on, how to influence people and win friends. You may have some different levels in those other places, but being sure about your why is, for me, your North Star, because it also helps you to realize if it's also time for you to leave that position.
Mhm,
If that why is not attainable in your opinion, or your
yeah.
why has changed to something totally different and you don't care about this anymore, it may be time
Yeah.
to make a change.
That's hard for people too.
Very hard, but you determine, because
Mm,
when your why isn't clear, why you're doing this and why the mission is important to you, favoritism, the power dynamics, the influence, the respect, all of those can be completely out of alignment because you no longer care about the work that you're doing. So I think for women specifically, sometimes we doubt various aspects of that and we don't lean into who we truly are in those spaces. We're not men. Men, you know, they are celebrated in ways at times that we're not celebrated. And
mhm,
I think we can focus on that, or you can focus on who you are and what you have. And
mm,
easier said than done. Like, I'm not
mhm.
making it that simplistic. But in the finality of what you have to think about, I choose to focus on me. What do I have control over? And what can I do to improve my leadership? Is it bringing myself around other people that I respect or people that I really admire how they lead? Or
Mhm,
shifting a lot of this perspective to, okay, I don't feel like I'm supported. How do I support someone else?
mm,
Or looking at influence and asking people, how do I tell my story of my company? Or how do I influence people in my division or in my department so that they are on board with the mission of what we have to do or the goal of what we have to do? As leaders, there's not a silver bullet, there's not a one size fits all. You are coming to the table with your own experiences, your own attitudes, your own very special sauce. And the only way that you can make that better is if you are working on things that are authentic to you so that you can
mm.
lead in a way that allows you to be really clear and happy in working towards your why.
Did your did your why or your yeah, let me go back to that. So do you believe that your why shifted from being a scientist to the CEO? Did it change or did it become more narrowed and niched in because you saw something specific within your why, within your core values that was more that was just more pinpointed doing what you're doing now than you were as a scientist, because you still are a scientist and you still are pouring all that into these students and encouraging them in their scientific search, their innovation. Do you feel like as women, as leaders, that it is a changing of your values, or you just get more concentrated on your values when you made those shifts?
Uh, I think your why can be refined, and sometimes your
Mm,
why is broadened. It
mm,
um as a scientist and doing research, my why was broadened because it was supposed to help thousands or millions of people. But it was refined because I was working on potentially one specific cancer or molecule or organism. Um, I think as a leader, it is being able to see the forest and the trees. And sometimes
mm,
working on specific trees. And sometimes you're looking at your forest and the forest of the person that's next to you. Um,
mm,
your skill set is consistently being refined and honed um, as you lead. There are things that come into your purview that you never would have imagined, i.e., these labs. I never would have imagined that. I really thought I was going to continue to do and run an organization just with the programs that we had, which are many. I felt like we had enough. Also, as a leader, you determine if you are going to take on more or not. And that can stretch your leadership where you are having to be able to speak to the broader topic of your why. And I think as a scientist, I bring that in as well, because you have to be able to tell the broader picture and the broader impact, as well as how is this specific thing that you're doing impacting that thing. So as you hear, as a scientist, scientist that runs a nonprofit is fully who I am. I bring all of my tools
Mm.
and skills to be able to solve problems. And I think that's what everyone should do as well.
Well, the world thanks you. And I mean that because I see how you have influenced literally the world and what you're doing and how you have changed the perspective of science for the next generation, not just now. And you've given back so much more than what you have taken. And I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Momentum's virtual trainings are made possible with the support of Protective Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, and America's Thrift. Find the full list of sponsors as well as additional resources for women leaders on our website at momentumleaders.org. Thanks for taking the time to invest in you, and remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel. We love reading thoughts and comments, so you can leave those for us here too. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching at Momentum Leaders.